So, we are here for a new era. Even though I think I've released, this will be the third episode of the Star Wars discussion shows I've released in the last week. And also the other two were also with Dave, who's joining me. But we are here talking about the Ahsoka show. So it's the premiere, the episodes 1 and 2. And we're going to be doing this for 7 weeks. I'm going to have a different guest each episode, or at least aim to. If not, Dave will come crawling back. But I am joined by Dave. We've obviously recently rewatched all our Rebels stuff, and obviously you've seen all of Clone Wars. And we even broke down the trailer. So going into these 2 episodes, it's going to be kind of hard, I think, to split them because I watched them one after another. But just first impressions of the show and kind of vague thoughts on it from kind of the get-go, and we'll spring load from there.
I think the first thing, so hey Mike, it's good to be back. It does feel like we've spoken a lot about Star Wars in the last few months.
I love it.
You know, with the Rebels review, and I have to say, you probably had more insight about where this series was going to be than I did. For me, it was just great to do that project, get Math along for the journey, and for me to rewatch the whole Rebels series. Just complete fucking luck that, Ahsoka is essentially Rebels Series 5. And, we just finished it off. That, again, more down to you with the planning, probably. Got to finish that off and then saw the trailer. And then it's like, holy shit, this has got a bunch of the Rebels. Fucking hell, it's Ezra. Oh, my God. And so, I was super pumped coming into this series. And I have seen a few little negative comments here and there about, oh, well, it kind of ends up where we already knew it was before. But I'm like, bullshit. I fucking loved it. Again, was it particularly brave storytelling? No, it was quite safe. But for me, I just thought it was great. And there were so many homages to lots of different things. In some of the dialogue, in some of the acting, in some of the just general cinematography, the way things are shot. We all know that, coming into Star Wars, there was a lot taken from the Japanese cinema. I thought you saw that front and center here, but as well as homages to the original, the way the whole thing opens, it's almost like the flip side of how, in the original New Hope, you get the ship, Leia's ship coming from the top. Here, you've got it coming from the bottom. But it was just amazing, I thought. And yeah, it threw me a little bit at the end of episode 2 in terms of I thought I had an idea where Rebels finished, and that was just after Return of the Jedi, literally after the Revolution. But this changed that, and it's like, oh, right, okay, so it's a little bit later than that. So it does bring us, and we get almost shot-for-shot remakes, don't we, of that last episode. But I'm like, great, I love it. I'll always gravitate to the live-action stuff. And even though we've seen that little bit, it's only 5 minutes of footage, something like that, even if that, it was great just to align it with where Rebels finished and think, right, okay, that's all the table setting now. Off we go into the main series, and I can't wait.
Yeah, well, linking it with the timeline, so I'll just briefly say for the audience listening in case they aren't aware, so BBY or ABY is generally in the out of universe measuring thing. It's after the Battle of Yavin or before the Battle of Yavin. The Battle of Yavin is when they blew up the Death Star in A New Hope. So it's Empire Strikes Back 3 years after the Battle of Yavin, and Return of the Jedi is 4 years after that, and the Mandoverse is loosely 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So we are approximately 9 years after the Battle of Yavin, 9 years after A New Hope. And Rebels Series 4, excluding the epilogue that you mentioned, takes place, each season of Rebels is about a year, and the last season of Rebels is about a year before Rogue One / A New Hope. So approximately 1 year before the Battle of Yavin. So the events of Ahsoka are about 10 years after the finale of season 4 of Rebels. So that epilogue we see in Rebels is in theory 10 years later, which again, I think Filoni mentioned in passing that the epilogue of Rebels is after Endor, just at some point after Endor. And I think he made a comment when it first came out, and then nearer Ahsoka coming out, but before we really knew Ahsoka was happening, he then made an addendum to it almost and added an extra word or two just to be like, yeah, it's after Endor. Didn't say how long after Endor, but it's after it. So it's interesting having 10 years later after Rebels. And I enjoyed these 2 episodes. Megan wasn't as fussed. She actually fell asleep in both of them. So, which isn't necessarily to say the quality isn't there, but she wasn't as gripped by the show. She's been more gripped by Andor, for example. I enjoyed this, definitely. I think it is good. I think the first couple of episodes of series, especially because we just finished Rebels Series 4, and I stand by, I think Rebels, specifically Series 4, almost every single episode is better than almost all other Star Wars. It's, there's a few highlights. Some of the movies are fantastic as well. But generally speaking, I think all of Rebel Series 4 is better than about 90% of all that Star Wars exists. And the problem is literally finishing that a few weeks ago and talking about it last week, essentially, or week before. I almost wish I'd given us more time, because from how good that was, Ahsoka might get there. And I was saying to Tonya, who she'll be on the show in episode 6, I think. So Tonya Todd, part of the Femon Collective and stuff, and she's been on other Star Wars shows. We were talking a little bit before recording. I generally don't try to talk to people about it because I want my own opinion unfiltered first. But when we were talking about it, I was kind of thinking, Filoni is not the best starting things, but he is incredible at ending things. And I'd put people to the Clone Wars movie isn't good. This first series, the Clone Wars, is definitely the weakest. The Rebels Series 1 is good, but it's not phenomenal. But you look at like the Clone Wars finale, first the original finale around season 6 when they thought it was cancelled, and then the series 7 finale, the Rebels finales, like all of those things just hit so hard. So I think although for me, these 2 episodes were good, my main critique, I would kind of explain it in one sentence almost, which is what I should have done, is it's about 100 minutes altogether of footage, and I feel like everything that's been said could have probably been told in 40 minutes. And I'm not to say, I like, Star Wars, a lot of it is about really cool shots and things like the intro shot you mentioned, but I just felt, I saw Sabine on that speeder bike, I feel like for about 5 minutes, it probably wasn't, it was probably about 30 seconds in total, but there was just a few shots, or there's a few moments, I think Megan mentioned it at one part, and she was like, Sabine's just cutting her hair. Why can't she hurry up? And I know, I've seen online since that it's meant to, I think, mirror Kanan cutting his hair off in Rebels, which I didn't pick up on. But I've seen the shots of it now, and I'm like, oh, the knife and that stuff, and her being sat there with the helmet on and the knife. And I was like, oh, that's really clever. So I think that links in with you, that I think once the series is finished or kind of got going, I'm going to love this. But I think that just because it is really setting the scene, and I really want to hear your opinion on how do you think the viewing experience for the first 2 episodes differs from people like us who've seen Rebels and stuff, and people who haven't? Because that balancing act is not easy. And I personally think, although my critiques of the first episodes, I think the way Filoni did it was very well done balancing wise, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
I think it's a good question, and it's really hard to answer, actually. We could do with someone, I guess, who's on next? Who's on for episode 2? I think
Matt is next week.
All right, okay. so maybe episode 3, whoever you have on for then, it'd be good to understand from their perspective, because I think even looking at the trailer and these first 2 episodes, because I'm seeing some of these characters that I've loved from Rebels on screen, I'm like, that's enough for me already. Whatever the story is, as long as you don't do a horrible job of representing them, I'm good. I'm in. Whereas I think if you've got no affiliation, you don't care about these characters, I'm not sure about, would you enjoy it as much? And probably, there were probably some dull things in there. I can't imagine anyone's watching this who hasn't seen Ahsoka from The Mandalorian, say.
Yeah.
No one's going to be watching this, or it'd be a word of mouth thing, so maybe a few weeks if it does start to pick up pace. But yeah, I think the good thing about Star Wars is, though, they're forever just introducing characters, and they feel like 3-dimensional characters a lot of their time. Let's ignore Jar Jar Binks for a second, but most of them are 3-dimensional characters, and you can tell that they've got this history, and they'll drop in little bits of dialogue, and you think, oh, I'd be more interested in finding out more about that. Like when Lando turns up in Empire Strikes Back, it's like, oh, this is a guy with a history. He's a little bit of a chancer kind of thing, and you think of him as a real person. So I think if you haven't met those characters before, that'd be okay if you were a Star Wars fan. Because, if you're a Star Wars fan and you haven't watched Rebels, these characters turn up and they're just new characters that I've never met before. But I feel like it's consistent within the universe.
Yeah, I'd be in agreement with you. I think that there's one thing that I found, and with the rising, I think I was mentioning it before recording, but with the rising amount of a younger generation who grew up with the sequels compared to us who grew up with the prequels and originals, it's what people are doing now is defending the sequel defense is starting to come up now, like it was with the prequels years ago. And one of the big critiques people going was like, when people were criticizing the sequels, like, why have we got nothing about Snoke? We don't know Snoke's backstory. We need it. And everyone's gone, it took like basically decades to actually get the background of Palpatine. No one, when the original trilogy came out, no one was going, I need the backstory of Palpatine. No, and when you watch the original trilogy without seeing anything else, you know nothing about Palpatine at all. I don't think he is even mentioned he used to be a senator. It's literally just, he's the emperor and he's super powerful and that's that. And everyone was just like, thumbs up, that's cool. And it's just this weird thing, I think, recently where I think probably because of the Disney Plus content and just the recent sort of couple of decades of content on content on content, both on screen and off screen, where every character, especially in Star Wars, can have a ridiculously massive, complex backstory. And I think people expect that from the start. But it's like, if I just had every character just read off exposition their entire life, it would be so dull.
Yeah.
And I just think, as you say, the way they've done it with the script in this and the way the characters interact, as you say, you can feel the history there without it just being an exposition dump, which I really like.
Yeah. And I think it's more so the last 10 years in particular, when you've got, people like us who come on and we chat about things on a podcast or YouTube or whatever. But I feel like the real kind of upper end of influencers, they're always searching for this hot take, and like, oh, you should have given us this, and we want to know the whole backstory to this person and what's happened with these. And Han Solo is one of my favorite characters from the original. And, if you'd have asked me back in the day, would I want to know more about his backstory? Would I want to know more about the Kessel Run? I said, absolutely. Got to see Solo. You know what? Probably didn't need to see that. So be careful what you wish for at times. But yeah, I think even if you look at the way that original trilogy was put together, you finish New Hope and you're like, right, you could just literally draw a line under that. They've won. The rebels have won. All right, this Vader character, he's a bit of a lackey in the first one, wasn't he? Anyway, he wasn't what he became later. But the Death Star has been destroyed. That's it, game over. And then you start off on Hoth, and you're like, the fuck's going on? And you've had the crawl and everything, but it's like this massive jump, it seems. And so there's always these spaces in between, and I think it leaves plenty of room for comics, doesn't it, years later to be kind of filled in and whatever. So I'm completely fine with not knowing the backstory to everything, and I sometimes feel like it is a crutch. People say, oh, it's an easy criticism, isn't it? Oh, this person shows up and I didn't know all about them from 40 minutes of content or whatever. Well, I think that's okay.
I think it's normal people.
I tell you, they're setting up a mystery, and I don't know if you've got it in your notes, but we'll discuss it later.
You can bring it up now. We can jump around. It's not a problem.
Who do you think that Inquisitor is? Because they are guarding his identity purposefully. So I feel like, we've definitely seen this person before. I don't want it to be Ezra Bridger. I don't want them to do a whole switcheroo where, because we saw in Rebels, more so not so much in the last season, but like season 3, I would say, he was sort of playing around with the dark side quite a bit. And, we've had a whole block of time where we don't know what's happened to Ezra or Thrawn. Could it be that, in this other galaxy where they are, he's managed to switch over? I hope it's not that. But it's definitely someone we've seen before.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
The name they have, which is the only reference point, and I think it's only been mentioned out of universe, is Marok, which is every name is made up, but it's not a name that means anything, but there are a lot of theories going along. And the only two things I'll say about it, as in, I don't know anything, but there's the theories going on, which is Barriss Offee, which this is going to be a very, very light spoiler for Clone Wars, but I will not say how important it is. But there's a character who has a interaction, shall we say, with Ahsoka in a crucial arc in the Clone Wars, which eventually leads to Ahsoka leaving the Jedi Order. That character has not appeared elsewhere since the Clone Wars. And Filoni's always said they have plans for that character. So that's a theory. But also someone, again, I was trying not to look on social media today, but I did catch 1 or 2 Star Wars posts. Sam Witwer was noted as doing additional voices on this this episode, along with a few other people. But he was noted, and Sam Witwer, for anyone who doesn't know, he voices Maul in Star Wars and Clone Wars. He voiced Palpatine, I think, in Battlefront 2, the game. And then he did Starkiller, Galen Marek from the Force Unleashed games, which is one of my favourite pieces of Legends content. And he's done lots of other bits and pieces in Star Wars, so it could be just nothing. But there is the theory that in the Clone Wars, they actually, I think they made a model, or they plan to make a model of Starkiller from the Legends games. And there's always been this little theory buzzing around that Starkiller is going to appear again, and there was always a theory that he would actually just be an Inquisitor. So there is a potential that it could be Sam Witwer, and it could be like a kind of a Starkiller kind of thing. I wouldn't personally want that as much because it takes away from the Starkiller character. I either want his legend story or I don't necessarily, because his legend story is too big now to even fit into canon. But so there's that theory, or Barriss Offee. But I do feel like there must be more to it, because I first thought when Ahsoka and Marek fought, I was like, Ahsoka's going to wipe the floor with them, and Ahsoka didn't, and I was like, oh,
yeah. So and Ahsoka's nails. So that Inquisitor held his own up with Ahsoka. You know, it was a bit of a what do they call it when it
tete-on-tete?
It's a draw. No, when there's no real outcome.
Oh, stalemate.
Yeah, that's the word I'm searching for. So he ends up legging it, you know, and I love the way, you know, he's bringing his kind of lightsaber back, and Ahsoka's just like casually sort of gets out of the way. It's like so cool. But yeah, you would imagine toe to toe, Ahsoka's going to take most people out. So it must be someone pretty powerful. And I think at first my mind was going to, it must be someone we've seen in live action. But actually, it doesn't have to be. It just needs to be someone who either Ahsoka or Sabine or both, you know, or someone else recognizes, you know. So there's a reveal. I think 60% of me though is that we've seen this person in live action. I have no idea who it could be, but for that reveal when it does come, you kind of want a punch in the stomach in some way, don't you? It's a weird sentence to say, but you know, you kind of want to be, holy shit. You know, you're forever searching for these moments, aren't you? Like the Luke, I'm your father kind of thing. You know, you're looking for something like that. And I just feel that it has to be someone of significance. Yeah,
either he die or they die next episode, or you need to kind of do something more with it. I'd be inclined to agree. Well, speaking of lightsabers, because we're going to be dotting around here, there, and everywhere. Everyone who's watched this has seen the story, so we don't specifically need to repeat the explicit story beats. But it's mainly on this watch, I think, it's kind of characters that I'm most intrigued by here. So we were speaking about lightsabers, so let's speak about the two antagonists, as we call them in Rebels Reviewed, the Blood Orange Boys. Even though
50% is a lady, you know?
Yeah, exactly, or the Blood Orange bunch, depending on what Shin Hati feels about them themselves. But so it's Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati, played by Ray Stevenson and Ivana Sakno. And first of all, I love Blood Orange lightsabers. It's a very easy, and we discussed it in the prior episode, but we were like, it's a very easy way to basically be like, they're bad, but they're not the Sith. And it's like, to be fair, that's quite a good visual cue, and it still looks very cool. New lightsabers, new colours for sale, etc., you know. But the two characters, you know, everyone online, I think unanimously is saying Ray Stevenson's performance is probably the best thing about the show thus far.
Yeah.
I've not heard many people say much about Ivana Sakno's character yet, but I want to highlight one element, and then I'll throw it to you for your thoughts on both these characters. I really, really enjoyed Shin and Sabine fighting with lightsabers.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of the critiques I've seen online, I'm reading it and I go, you guys didn't understand the assignment. Where the critiques online are going, God, these two fighting are like children fighting with lightsabers. Like, yes.
They're Padawans.
Exactly, yeah. She's a Padawan. Sabine's had very limited training with the Darksaber, and to live action only viewers, to her, she may not have even properly wielded one. And it's like, yeah, she has some degree of force sensitivity, but as Hu Yang said, not a lot. So it's like this, it kind of made me feel a little bit like one of my favourite moments, probably in all of Star Wars, but definitely the highlight of the sequel trilogy, is in A Force Awakens, when Finn is fighting Wren, and he's barely keeping his own. Well, Ren's got a shot in his stomach, and he's still fighting off Finn. And then he also beats Rey, and then Rey gets the call of the Force and then does actually beat him. But, like, I loved that, because I love over-the-top, crazy lightsaber fights like we get in the prequels. Love them. I also like the more slow, steady ones, especially like in Return of the Jedi. Really like those. But I think we're probably going to get it a little bit in maybe the Acolyte series coming out, but we don't have enough of people who are, like, not that experienced with lightsabers. You get one who's not experienced fighting someone who's very experienced, and they just get the floor wiped with them, like Anakin in Attack of the Clones or Dooku. But I really liked you watching them, and it's almost like this is kind of how normal people would kind of fight with lightsabers.
Yeah.
And I did actually really enjoy that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that scene, and then wider on Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati.
Yeah, I thought up until you just mentioned it there, it hadn't occurred to me that it's basically, it's not Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, is it? And for me, that is the pinnacle of, two very skilled, swordsmen or lightsabersmen. But I don't know, it felt more real. I mean, basically that's Ezra Bridger's lightsaber, isn't it? So we were talking about it, weren't we, after our Series 4 Rebels review, that, I thought she probably was a Padawan, and because she'd done the training with the Darksaber, then she probably is a bit force sensitive. Now, I don't know how much I love that. I love the idea that these Mandalorians were just this group of people who were pissed off at the Jedi and so had to build all this machinery and stuff to compete with the Jedi. And I like those things to be mutually exclusive. But clearly they're going that way, so I'll go with them on it. But yeah, you can tell she's just very headstrong. Probably wouldn't get on with Ahsoka, who's another one who didn't complete her training. So yeah, I liked the back and forth. I also think that those two have almost like a Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan dynamic between them. And she's still very much. She's even got the little rat tail, hasn't she? The little Padawan thing that we saw in the prequels. So yeah, they're clearly setting those two up as kind of an antagonistic relationship. So you would think, Sabine as, I almost feel like this series is Ahsoka and the Rebels crew. So I think, Ahsoka will be probably at the center of everything, but I feel like, and I almost hope that this is as much about Sabine's arc as well, so she'll go through that training and she'll be the one to take her out by the end of the series, hopefully. Or, maybe she doesn't kill her off, but, it gets the better of her. As for Ray Stevenson, what an absolute crying shame. I mean, I don't think I've seen him in anything where he is so charismatic on screen. I thought he was decent in Punisher. He's been in like the Marvel movies and stuff, the Thor movies. But I thought in this, he was really, again, he almost sounded, if you close your eyes, he sounded a bit like Qui-Gon Jinn to me. Yeah, and like the ominous kind of way he appears on screen, we're no Jedi, and then gives him the old, it's like the way Han Solo went, isn't it? Straight through him there. But to be fair, that captain, he was a bit of a dick, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I'm not saying he deserved it, but he was a knob. So yeah, I do like that. I like the fact that they're a bit grey. Clearly, we thought that they probably were, ex-Jedi, ex-younglings or whatever. I'd love, some kind of flashback, see them escaping, Anakin slaughtering all the younglings. But, there's that remorse in him as well, isn't there? So at the end of episode 2, when, they're talking about offing Ahsoka, he's like, well, so few of us left. And so there's that kind of conflict within him. So, yeah, I do think it's such a shame with Ray Stevenson, because he's not that old, and you see him on screen here, and you're like, Christ, he looks like he's got another 30 years in him. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It was one of those, and I'll say something again I saw online. I can't take credit for noticing this, but it seems like, Dave Filoni's famously loves wolves. That's why the Loth wolves are in Rebels, and he wears wolf shirts and stuff. So the name Baylan Skoll and then Shin Hati, or Hatai, I think it's Hati, come from Norse mythology. So they both represent like two wolves circling the moon, and Skoll and Hati essentially cause Ragnarok, which obviously is kind of the end of Asgard, as we probably most of us know from the Thor movie, let's be honest. Like, I've not read Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology. I've heard it's amazing. Yeah. I've heard it's really good, and I know there's a lot of, like, shout out to Tonya Todd again, she loves Norse mythology and Loki and things like that. But yeah, one of the images I actually saw online, so I'll show it here. This is from the Villains Wiki of Fandom, where it's the two, Dave reflected in the thing.
Nice.
So it's the two wolves, and each of those is meant to represent Skoll and Hati. So it's kind of like, they're, loosely I interpret that as they're on some sort of quest, and for them to achieve their quest would actually end up destroying the world, the universe, whatever. And whether or not that is the case, I quite liked that extra bit of trivia that I found out about an hour before recording. But I really, really like it. I agree. The charisma's there. The Qui-Gon thing I hadn't specifically thought of, but now you mention it, I'm like, yes, that's really he's very calm. He's very comfortable with himself, and that's what I like, whereas Shin seems to be a bit more volatile, but that's what Padawans are like. And it is interesting having two people who are like, they don't seem overtly sadistic. Like, most of the time when you get, like, I love Maul and obviously Vader and people like that, but they literally force people to suffer kind of for the fun of it. Whereas it seems like these two are kind of just making their way in the universe. And I think it's one of the only times in canon, at least, we've seen a Jedi go through Order 66 and then come out the other side, not as a Sith, not as an Inquisitor, but also not a Jedi. And I love the moral grey area of that. And although they're more leaning on the dark side, they're killing a lot of people, it is like, what are their plans? What are they hoping to do? What are they hoping to achieve? And I'm very interested by them. Like, although I want more from Rebels, the Rebels crew, and I like Ahsoka as a character, I think my main draw for the show at the moment, finishing Series 2, is legitimately these two characters. Because it says, this is in the trailer, so in case anyone isn't watching trailers and stuff, spoiler warning, in the trailer it's mentioned Ray Stevenson's character, Baylan Skoll, seemingly says to Ahsoka, I knew Anakin, I knew your master, I knew what happened to him, or I knew of him, I met him. So it's like, I hope that we're going to get a flashback of their interaction, and that will give the live action fans an understanding of Ahsoka's relationship with Anakin, because I think in this show, her mentioning that Anakin was her master is the first time in live action she's actually said it, because it's only hinted at in Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian. So I'm all in for just, it is fan service, but I'm all in for flashbacks of Ahsoka and Anakin. I'm desperate for Ahsoka to see the flashback of when Ahsoka found out that Anakin changed from Vader back to Anakin, and also I want the backstory of Baylan and Shin. Like, they're the three things I'm really gunning for. And we spoke about it in Rebels Review that I know Sabine, I think, was a character you really enjoyed, and I would say in this show so far, I think Sabine is the weakest link. Which is not against the actress. I think it's Natasha Louis Borrezzo or something similar. I'll look it up to make sure I'm not getting it wrong. Like, nothing against her as an actor at all. But I just found the character, to me, felt like she wasn't from the end of Series 4 of Rebels. It felt like she'd kind of receded back to Series 2, 3 Sabine. And I assume that's intentional, because obviously Filoni made it all, and he's very good at the long game stuff. But for me, I was just a bit like, it's been 10 or so years, and it seems like she's just kind of been wallowing for that whole time. Like, she's living in Ezra's old place, which I loved all those scenes, and her with the Tuca cat. But her as a character, like, we got a lot of focus on her, and I probably thought, when I first heard about the show, I was like, oh, cool, we're going to find out what Sabine thinks about the Mandalorian massacre and all the stuff Bo-Katan talks about. And it's like, maybe we will, but the way the show seems to be going is like, no, she's now essentially completely separated from the Mandalorians. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts on Sabine at all?
I mean, I thought she was okay. I didn't think I hadn't really thought about it in those terms, and like I say, going through the episodes is one thing, but when you kind of realize that it's about 10 years after, what would you say, 10 years after the end of the season, season 4, and you sort of think, well, if she was, let's say, 25 then, well, she should be 35 now, but she's actually acting like a spoiled teenager or something, or a belligerent teenager. So yeah, I hadn't thought about that until you just mentioned it, but I guess that is slightly ridiculous. And she does go through, a lot of growth in that season 4, doesn't she? Where, it's a lot more about the Mandalorian culture and that whole space of the galaxy or whatever. So yeah, she probably has regressed a little bit, but and the fact that I guess she's that perennial teenager, though, isn't she? That's possibly where Filoni has her, because the very first thing they've got she's supposed to turn up for the ceremony and whatever, and she doesn't, and then she's off and she's listening to teenage rock music kind of thing. So yeah, I guess I hadn't thought about that, but I detached. Not thinking of it in a canon type way, just thinking of the story and kind of the reflection from Rebels that I know. But yeah, when you stand back, it doesn't make that much sense. But I think they did an okay job of communicating to us. Okay, so she's had this antagonistic relationship almost with Ahsoka. She's not a very good student. Ahsoka's probably not a very good teacher, and I think part of that. How much guilt does she feel? From leaving the Jedi Order. Maybe if she didn't, maybe Anakin could have been saved. Because she was a good influence on him and made him question things a lot. We saw in Clone Wars. So yeah, I don't feel like Sabine is the weakest part of the season, but or these first 2 episodes. But it was enough for me. I think she didn't really. You're right. It's not completely consistent with what we saw in season 4.
Yeah, I'm just like, I try not to be too nitpicky with Star Wars content where I can be. I normally have to be almost to preempt any criticisms that are going to come my way. Unless it's Andor, then it's very hard to.
And you only have to go on Twitter or X or, there is someone nitpicking somewhere. So, we don't have to pick them all.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So it's a general discussion show, this, if people haven't already clocked on half an hour in, where it's not about, shitting on Ahsoka or anything like that. It's more just, I think, I feel like a question that needs to be answered at some point is, what on earth were they all doing during the Galactic Civil War? Now, from the Forces of Destiny cartoons, which are canon at the moment, unless something overrides them, but they are canon, Hera was at points on Endor around the time of Return of the Jedi, seemingly before the Death Star blew up. So Hera and the Ghost and Chopper, at least, were about. I think Sabine may have been as well a little bit, and I know from the Rebels epilogue, she mentions they were involved in the Galactic Civil War, which is fine. Obviously, there's a question of what was Ahsoka doing, but I do wonder if her relationship with Sabine actually adds more weight to why she wouldn't take Grogu on in The Mandalorian, because we were given the way she said it was the impression that, I don't want to take on Grogu because of dark side, passion, Anakin sort of subtext, and now it's like, well, maybe it was because of Sabine, and Sabine is quite not saying this as a negative way, but Sabine is quite an emotionally driven character. And although she matured throughout Rebels, she never really seemed to get her emotions fully under control. And that's the main thing. I'm reading a book at the moment, or listening to the audiobook, called Inquisitor Rise of the Red Blade. It's fantastic. It's about a character who was a Jedi or Padawan before the Clone Wars, gets promoted, and is just not connecting with the Jedi Order at all. She keeps getting blamed for stuff. There's all these hurdles that kind of seemingly aren't her fault, and she's kind of slipping further and further away from the Jedi Order, and she becomes an Inquisitor, hence the name of the book, and she appears in one of the Vader comics. And seeing her perspective in it, it's really showing how she's going through all this horrible stuff like Anakin was, and questioning things, and she keeps being told, just meditate. You shouldn't have these feelings. Just don't feel these things. Being a Jedi isn't about passion. It's about serenity. And it's like, okay, but someone close to me has just died and I'm trying to deal with it, and you're just telling me to go sit quietly over there and not tell anyone about it. And it's that that interesting thing where the Jedi on paper sound so good, and then when you delve deep into what it is to be a person and the complex nature of things, I can see why they needed to indoctrinate kids at the age of like 2 or 3, because when I was younger, I was like, oh, I'd be a great Jedi. And now I'm thinking, if I got into the Order, I think I would slip into the dark side. I think someone would, if I was out in the real world and someone was like really, if someone insulted Megan or something, and I had the power just to lift them up with my mind, I wouldn't kill them, but I would definitely lift them up with my mind and drop them on their ass. And I think that I'd gradually do that more and more frequently, and eventually it would get to the point where something horrendous would happen. So I'm kind of, although I raised my own point on that, I feel like I wonder if Sabine, how far she's going to go and how much she's going to be. Because then, in theory, we're going to have Grogu the Mandalorian somewhat Jedi, and then Sabine the kind of Mandalorian Jedi. And I think I want more Force users who don't align with the Jedi or the Sith, kind of the middle ground ones. I quite like that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say one thing. Wouldn't it be great, even if it was just for a day, to have access to the light on the dark side of the Force?
God. So
you know,
cool.
someone cuts you up, just lean out the window, bit of Force lightning, just take out their tires or something.
Oh, I'd use the Force to move their steering wheel just to the right.
Well,
straight away. Crash.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I remember. I think it was for the 2000 census. I think I filled my religion in as Jedi. You know, I meant it as well. Whereas now I think, you know, the Jedi are kind of dicks. Especially with things like that. And you sort of think, well, yeah, it just doesn't really work. And like you say, interesting choice of words, to indoctrinate kids into the Order. Well, it's like, what? So you're a brainwashing cult then? You know,
Basically.
because basically, if you try and take someone who's already grown up a little bit and had that independent thought and, you know, questions things, well, you don't want that. You want people to be molded very early. And I don't know though if I love that in the Star Wars universe. You know, the great thing for me about that original idea coming out of the original Star Wars was that it was so fucking black and white. You know, it was literally the goodies versus the baddies. And, you know, you didn't know all of the things that were going on. And, you know, through the prequels and all of the cartoons and whatever, you've explored some of the grayness. And I'm kind of okay with the grayness being there. But I think you've still got to have your Tarkins, you've got to have your Vaders, you know, you've got to have those proper mustache twirling villains, you know, who are just, you know, they've tapped into the dark side of the Force, but it's not just them using it, it's the dark side of the Force using them as well. You know, that's kind of the way I see it. But I do think, you know, where we are in 2023, I mean, it's not a new thing actually, is it? I think the first thing I came across was like Wicked, which is like, oh, it's a completely different perspective on, you know, good versus evil, and it makes you think a little bit differently. And it seems like since then, you know, for the last 20 years or something, it's like, oh, well, let's subvert everything. And, you know, you can't just have a simple goodies versus baddies kind of story anymore. But I think with the two main antagonists, I think that's probably what we're going to see. I mean, ultimately, are they in it for their own reasons? I mean, Skoll says he's in it for the power, doesn't he? But I do feel like they're just making their way through the galaxy. You know, they probably had this nomadic existence. They're not Emperor level evil or Vader level evil, but they do use the dark side, but like you say, maybe in a practical way to get by in the world. So yeah, I think this will probably ask some more questions. And I feel like I want it to just tell its own story. But I do feel like this is going to do a bit of an MCU Iron Man 2 sort of thing. It's going to spend a lot of time just setting other things up as well.
I agree. I think this is going to be a prelude to the Dave Filoni rumored movie, which he's confirmed. The only things we know for sure about it is it's going to be connecting to the Mandalorian content. And from what we can tell, and there's a rumor, and I'm fairly certain I voiced this thought on a podcast before the rumor came out, but if I didn't, I was talking about it a lot at Star Wars Celebration, so just ask everyone there. But it was that the Heir to the Empire is probably going to be what they're going to call the new movie. And it's like, if that's the case, Thrawn's the main bad. And so we have to introduce if you're going to make a movie, you have to make sure every person knows what's going on in there. And rather than spending half the movie explaining who Thrawn is, if they explain who Thrawn is through an Ahsoka series, through maybe one more live action series, because I think the movie's meant to come out in 2025. So I would assume that they're going to have a second series of Ahsoka maybe next year, or what. We don't know if Ahsoka's just its own thing or more than one series. Like, I assume there's going to be another piece of content aside from the Ahsoka series before this, call it as the Empire movie. And that is, as you say, it's all going to kind of be like Ahsoka. Like, have you read the Heir to the Empire books, the original Legends ones?
No.
They're pretty good. I only finished them recently. But the Luke plays a pivotal role, understandably, in that. And I think that what they're going to do is have Ahsoka playing that pivotal role and have Luke take more of a backseat, quiet by himself, doing the Jedi Order stuff, which would then feed more into the whole Last Jedi thing, where he's just lifting his hands up and trying to evade all war. And if Ahsoka's there, it kind of gives him a better reason to I'm going to hide here with all our Jedi younglings and protect them. You can go off and fight, essentially. So I do have a concern that is what it's going to be. And my suspicion is that Ahsoka's going to die in the Heir to the Empire movie. And I think that would just make everything kind of make sense in a way. But I want to ask your thoughts on droids, because there's two main droids in this series, one who's your bestie and one who's a blast from the past. So I'll throw it to you before I give any comments. Droids, Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, there were some good droids in this, weren't there? I mean, even from you talk about some of the content being stretched out. They could have probably done it in what they did in 40 minutes or so. I felt like that original Indiana Jones intro with Ahsoka, I felt like it was almost like a PlayStation game or something. The way it was all set up, it was like, is this like a Fallen Order sort of thing? Are we going to see this in a game or something? Because it just had that feel to it. But it seemed to go on for ages. It did not need to go on for that long. But when she comes up, and then you get is it the battle droids that they call them?
Yeah.
No, they're not battle droids.
They're assassin droids.
Assassin droids, that's the one. When that assassin droid spoke, I was like, that's it's the guy from the sequels, main baddie, Ben Kenobi.
Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren. Really sounded like Kylo Ren to me. Like, just the tone of his voice and everything. But I thought they were pretty good initially. But then when we got the escape, and we get this whole Jedi protocol nod, again, I'm sort of thinking, okay, so Return the Jedi was 30 years or something after Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah, 25, but yeah.
It was this ancient religion, as it was called at the time. Yet he's still following Jedi protocol now. I was like, well, that's a bit silly. To me, that was a bit of dialogue just to be thrown in there to say, for people who haven't seen Clone Wars, this guy was something to do with the Jedi Order, because he's still following that protocol, which is ridiculous to me. But yeah, he was the guy helping all of the younglings, wasn't he? Put all their lightsabers together and stuff. So it was a surprise to me to see him. I can't remember what his name is, but
Huyang.
So yeah, it was a surprise to me that he popped up. And you're saying about Sabine being maybe one of the weaker parts of these first two episodes, but I felt the dialogue between him and Sabine, was really good. I really liked that back and forth, because she was giving all those kind of, again, being a belligerent teenager. And it's like, if you could have opened this thing without me, would you have just done it? It's like, irrelevant. It's just almost like got this intolerance for teenage nonsense. Just just get on with it. The only time you're wasting is your own. So I liked his matter-of-fact approach to it. But I've got to say, one of my favorite bits, Chopper, my boy, turning up, being his little argumentative self as well. I thought that was brilliant. I thought they really did him justice there. And I think that the reason people kind of gravitate to him, it is that fucking Disney-fied Grogu type thing, isn't it? Where, they know what they're doing. but it's the fact that the noises that he makes, it's not like whistles and bleeps, like R2D2, which you kind of get a bit of sense of emotion from it. It's almost like you can tell what Chopper's saying. When he says he's looking for the tracking device, and he's like, "Got it." You can almost hear him say that. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I thought he was good. I was glad to see him coming up, and I thought he looked amazing. I know he was in Rogue One, I think, wasn't he? But that was just in the background.
I've watched that film so many times, and I still can't spot him. Like, I know you can go online and find the exact scene, but whenever they're on the other floor, I'm like, where is he? Like, I've caught the calling General Syndulla part now twice. I know where that is, but seeing Chopper, I think, I'm fairly certain I know around where he is, but I always get I'm like, oh, watch out for Chopper, and then I watch the movie. Yeah. Like, this movie's so good, and then the scene ends, and I'm like, I missed him again. I agree. Chopper's amazing in this. I want more Chopper. He's just excellent, and I agree. His warbles are fantastic. And then Hu Yang, obviously voiced by David Tennant, as he was in the Clone Wars. Really, the only Clone Wars connection. Well, actually, there's two. There's two major Clone Wars connections, which was Hu Yang, because he's not in Rebels. Where the hell he's been for the last 25 odd years, I don't know. Maybe we'll get an answer. But he is actually there's a book called Star Wars Timelines, which I normally have up here, but I've been reading it downstairs a bit. And it's the Jedi Order in canon has been confirmed as being set around 25,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. And it's around that time. Hu Yang was booted up for the first time 20 years later. So he's apparently been around for 24,900 years.
Wow.
So he's probably, him following Jedi Protocol, the last 25 years to him have been probably the equivalent of like a month or two for us.
Yeah.
Obviously in the show, people don't know that. Only nerds like me know that kind of thing. But... I liked Hu Yang. I love David Tennant and everything he's in. He kicks ass in Jessica Jones. He's phenomenal. Yeah. He's my favourite Doctor. Like, everything I see him in, he never does a bad job. And he's such a lovely guy as well. Good Omens, he's phenomenal into. So he gives it his all, which I really like. Now, the other Clone Wars connection I was going to mention is Night Sister Morgan Elsbeth. So I think, I'm fairly certain that in Mando Series 2, when we meet Morgan Elsbeth, I'm fairly certain on the Star Wars website they released a little data file on each character, and it's not really that much extra content, but at some point in that it mentions she's a Night Sister. So for 1%, if that, of the fandom, they already knew she was a Night Sister. When it happened, I was like, oh yeah, I'd forgotten, and then it reminded me. I was like, I remember reading it somewhere. So that's another Clone Wars connection. Obviously, people like Math, who I assume are listening, won't have a clue what a Night Sister is. If you've played the Jedi Survivor or Jedi Fallen Order, then you find out a lot more about it. I think the Fallen Order has quite a lot of details about the slaughter on Dathomir. But what do you think of like Morgan Elsbeth as a character? Obviously, she popped up. I mean, we had her named in the crawl, and it was quite nice having a crawl, actually. I forgot how much I missed that because we haven't seen a crawl since... I saw Rise of Skywalker in the cinema. So what do you think of Morgan Elsbeth in this as a kind of villain and their road to Thrawn, in a sense?
Yeah, I think I do want to know more as the series goes on. I want to know more about her character and kind of where she's coming from. And like I say, I remembered the Night Sisters being in the Clone Wars. I remember, they were heavily linked to Darth Maul, weren't they?
Yes, yeah.
Now, if Darth Maul was... Do I want to say this? Spoiler alert. Just go 30 seconds if you want to watch like Rebels and you haven't done. But I mean, if Darth Maul wasn't dead at this point, I would think the guy who, the Inquisitor, mind you, Inquisitor's kind of down from a Sith, isn't it? So yeah, he wouldn't downgrade himself. No, it can't be him. So yeah, I thought it was good for them to show up. And I think what from these first two episodes, I think we are tapping in to that animated universe, so there's lots of things that we were talking on Rebels Reviewed, weren't we, about like, I'm not so much into the mystical side of things. I like it where it's slightly vague, the Jedi and Sith can move things and you got Force lightning and stuff like that, but that's it. But even in that cave, what are the characters from the Clone Wars where you have the father, the daughter, and the daughter's on the light side?
The Mortis Gods is the arc.
That's the one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I feel like we could get a bit more of this. I feel like, what is it, the space between worlds or whatever, where
The world
Ezra,
between worlds, yeah.
world between worlds, yanks out Ahsoka from time, essentially, from that battle with Vader. So I feel like we're gonna, for the first time in live action, see a bit more of that. And I think having this Night Sister, I don't know how much of a grand kind of role she'll have. I basically think she'll unlock the keys to find Thrawn, and then season two or whenever Heir to the Empire movie or whatever it has to be, Thrawn will become the big bad. So her role is like a transitory thing. It's just a means to an end, I feel. But I tell you what I did like. When she was summoning Skull and the other one whose name I forget, it wasn't just a hologram. It was this weird kind of dust effect. It was like she was using the dust in the room to create an image, like a hologram. So again, I feel like we're getting away from the Sith and the Jedi kind of thing, and the Force isn't the only technically magic in this universe. There is something else there as well.
Interesting points. I don't know this for certain. I have a theory on the holograms. Oh God, and I think you're right with Morgan Elsbeth. I think she's going to die soon. I would be surprised if she even meets Thrawn, to be honest with you, because there's 6 canon Thrawn novels. I've read 3 of them, the first trilogy. I have not read the other trilogy. The other trilogy is all about the Chiss. Is that Game of Thrones almost, but in Star Wars, all about the Chiss and stuff, and it's a lot to deal with, which I haven't gone to yet. But the canon Thrawn trilogy basically fills in the gaps of Thrawn outside of Rebels. What was he doing before Rebels, during, and then we don't get after. That's what this show is for. But Morgan Elsbeth is never mentioned in any of that stuff. Now, obviously, the answer is because she wasn't created when Timothy Zahn was writing, but that makes me think that she probably feels like she's more important to Thrawn than she actually is. Regarding the hologram things, I may be wrong, but I think the ship she is on might be a Chiss ship. And if that's the case, Chiss ships use slightly different technologies, and they actually do use, for holograms I'm not so sure, but the way they go through hyperspace is not through a nav computer. They use something called Skywalkers. And so when Thrawn meets Anakin Skywalker at one point in the books, he's like, do you know what a Skywalker is? And he's like, well, me. And he's like, and you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry. But it's basically like generally teenage women who are Chiss, and they have Force sensitivity. And they are so attuned to the Force, they can navigate through hyperspace. They basically stand at the front of a ship and meditate and guide the ship through hyperspace. And then normally when they get older, they usually lose most of their Force ability. So I wonder if that's connected to it in some way. These are quite deep cuts into the lore, but I do wonder if that's the case. But when I saw those holograms, I was like, oh, those are different. Are they, was that her doing it? Which it could have been, because Dathomiri and night magic is very powerful, dark side magic. It could be that. Is it she's on this Chiss ship and we're going to get loads of new cool Star Wars tech? Because that was the main thing missing from the sequel trilogy. Hey, we're 30 years on. Oh, wow. So we're going to get the difference we're going to get from the prequels to the originals. No, you're just going to get more X-Wings and TIE fighters. Like, okay, that's like one of the coolest parts about Star Wars, but all right. So I am very interested by that stuff. There was something else I was going to mention, which the assassin droids, I have a minor theory just from comics, and that is, because we don't know where those droids are from yet, I don't think. We've got a loose idea, but I wonder if they're the droid Gotra. And I'm only saying that in this recording just because if I'm right, I can say I told you so. Not to you, to the universe. But the droid Gotra are in the comics quite a lot. They were like Ochi of Bestoon, who's a character who's like a throwaway character in Rise of Skywalker. He plays quite a pivotal role in the Darth Vader comics and the Crimson Reign crossover events and stuff. He's associated with the droid Gotra, and they're basically like they're like pirates, but they're all droids kind of, and they go after bounties and things. So I'm intrigued by that element. One other thing I was going to say, I think we've gone through most of my notes, but one thing I was going to say was what I really liked is at the Lothal ceremony that you mentioned, we got not one but 2 characters from animation. I didn't pick up on the second one. Again, people think I'm the ultimate Star Wars knowledge prophet person. I know quite a bit. I don't pick up on everything, and normally when I first watch a show, I just try and enjoy it somewhat. So the main one I think you'd probably recognise, it was played by Clancy Brown, and that was Ryder Azadi.
Mm-hmm.
and he's quite a prominent character in Rebels. He's in the Thrawn books as well. And so I really liked seeing Clancy Brown, because I think he's played a different live action character who was in the Mandalorian Prison Break episode in season 1.
Yeah, he's quite heavily made up though, wasn't
Yes,
he? Had
100%.
all the kind of red makeup and horns and stuff.
Yeah, I love his voice. I mean, he pops up in everything. He was in Punisher as well, the MCU series. It was the Daredevil series where Punisher was in it. I love Clancy Brown. I thought he's fantastic. And then along with him, it was one of Ezra's childhood friends. I think he's called like Jay or Jirai. And he was
the guy who he pushes forward.
Yes, he was a friend of
Ezra's.
Right.
Okay.
Which again, I didn't pick up on that. So I saw that online and things. But there was a couple of little minor deep cuts. Then we've got Corellia was mentioned, which obviously is where Han Solo's from. And then we've got something called the Pathway to Peridia, which is the thing that Morgan Elsbeth and Balin and Shin, they all find there's that magic thing, the kind of thing that Sabine unlocks, and then we get to see it. What my theory of that is that Thrawn is in the unknown regions with the rest of the Chiss, and that's how you get there and back, maybe. But I just threw a lot at you of just deep cuts and other bits of information. So is there anything else you want to add to either anything I've said or any further things? Because we will start to wrap up, but anything else to add to what I've said or anything else?
Yeah, I guess just not to add a different point, but just to layer on top, really. There are so many deep cuts in this, and for years we've had to put up with franchises not really respecting themselves. So not being consistent. I'll point to the original X-Men trilogy that, they couldn't even keep fucking consistent within 3 movies, and basically you got different directors and writers and stuff all involved. And it's like, guys, it's 3 movies, So I think we're just spoiled a bit nowadays, but definitely, if you compare what happened with the sequels, more that last one just still leaves a sour taste in my mouth. But you can tell that Filoni just absolutely immerses himself. And I don't know if what's his name,
Favreau.
No, the guy who did Mandalorian, the main kind of writer. Favreau. They just love it. If you watch some of the extra documentaries and stuff, and there's this whole fucking ice cream maker thing that was just in the background once, and then they're like, oh, we've got to get this thing. And you can just tell they love it. And because there's so much more, I do wonder if is it going to stop people getting into it, or is it just going to reward people who've watched all the animated content as well? Because when she's looking off, I mean, this is in a galaxy far, far away, whereas this has just opened up a completely new galaxy. So we've talked about hyperspace and everything, and having hyperdrives that allows them to navigate around the galaxy very quickly. But this is a completely different galaxy. So is their standard technology going to get them there? Or you could see around the kind of circle, you had what looked like little Purrgil. I don't know if you noticed that. So I don't know if we're going to see more of the Purrgil. Again, Grogu saw them when they were traveling in hyperspace, didn't he? He saw them out the window. And so I kind of feel like
they do appear in episode 2. Right. I completely missed it. It's the...
I didn't see that.
You wouldn't. I watched a GIF of the scene it happens in, and I still couldn't see them until someone circled them. It is 4 seconds. It's again on Twitter. I said I didn't look much on Twitter, but clearly it shows how much my Twitter feed's consumed by Star Wars. I've got these things I didn't come up with. It's the scene we're talking about when they're there and Elsbeth is Morgan Elsbeth is sorting out the map thingamabob and the lights are shining out. Balin's skull looks up at clouds, and it's just 4 or 5 seconds of slow, and then I think the scene cuts. In the clouds, there are 3 unfathomably faint silhouettes of Purrgil, or at least what looks to be Purrgil. So they are still very much, and I think you're right there with what we saw. There are Purrgil and stuff. I think they are probably going to be part of the key to how people get places. I interrupted. Apologies.
No, just agreeing with you, really. I think I don't think their existing technology will get them there. And of course, at the end of Rebels, that's ultimately how Ezra was able to get Thrawn away from Lothal and basically allow everyone else to win that battle. So I feel like Purrgil are going to have to play a role in getting to Thrawn and hopefully Ezra as well.
My theory is that big old ring thing we saw. What I think that is so in the prequels, the old school Jedi starfighters, the triangle ones, Aether Sprite class, I think they're called. I'm not as good with ship names because there's so many and they're all slight variants, are much better species and character names. But those ships, the triangle ones, they had to use a hyperdrive ring. You saw it in Attack of the Clones. Obi-Wan had to do it when he went to Geonosis.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's a giant one for a Star Destroyer, for example. Maybe, a giant Star Destroyer. And so my theory, just from what we see in these episodes in the Purrgil, is the Empire building this thing. Ahsoka's going to try and stop it. Probably going to fail, but I imagine a couple of New Republic people are going to be on there. Or maybe Ahsoka's going to be on the ship. And then Hera and Sabine are left behind, and they're like, what do we do? And then Sabine and Hera make a plan to commune with the Purrgil via Sabine's loose force connection. And the way they basically trail after Ahsoka, or maybe not Ahsoka, just the Empire in this big ship thing. They shoot off into the unknown regions to go get Thrawn, and then our heroes follow the coattails by using the Purrgil to kind of get through. That's a theory I have, and I wouldn't be surprised if this series I wouldn't be surprised if kind of like episode 5, 6-ish is actually when we get to see Thrawn properly, when they air quotes rescue Ezra, whatever state that guy's in. And then we're going to get like a bit of battling, a bit of back and forth, and then the kind of finale is almost going to be them all coming back, probably losing against Thrawn because he'll just destroy everyone. Maybe we lose a main character or something. And then that's going to kind of leave it on a downer, kind of Empire Strikes Back style. That's my loose theory on these things. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
No, I mean, the only theory probably mentioned on the Rebels Reviewed is just that I think right at the end of the series, you just described some of the how there. I have no idea how, but I do feel like Thrawn will be back in this galaxy, right at the end there. I don't think it will finish on a downer, Empire Strikes Back sort of style. I think they'll win, but it'll be like a hollow victory. One of the things that's great about Thrawn is, these little losses are just tactical means to an end. It teaches him something about his enemy, which he's going to use at a later time. So I kind of feel like it might be more like A New Hope, where they kind of win, but actually, they haven't won the greater thing. And that actually brings me on to another point. And I know I moan about this a lot, but the redone ending of Return of the Jedi. Right. Let me put a pin in that for a second. So when they go to do their investigation, and they're smelling a bit of a rat, and then you can tell that a lot of these workers, despite what the business bloke says, you pay them and they're fine. I could kind of get behind that, but then clearly they do have an allegiance to the Empire. I don't think, would someone really say for the Empire? But probably not. But, you can imagine the average person doesn't have this massive affiliation with one governing body or another. If you're not part of the oppressed group, you're probably okay with the Empire. You're probably earning a decentish salary, you're getting by, you can feed yourself, you can feed your family or whatever. And it just irks me that they redid that ending to Return the Jedi. If you'd have left it as this battle that was won, they had this massive party on Endor, but it made it about the whole galaxy was celebrating because they defeated the Empire. And it makes even less sense to me now, because what I liked about this episode, again, Clone Wars style almost, it makes it more realistic in terms of what the average worker would be feeling. Would they be like celebrating that we've got this new republic? Well, no, probably not, because otherwise they'd have been okay with the old republic. The new republic is still going to have a lot of the same issues that the old one had. So the Empire, became a thing because people allowed it to become a thing. So I like the fact that they did that. I like the fact that, they have to make it make sense, don't they? From Return the Jedi to A Force Awakens, they have to make that 30-year gap make sense. And I think they will do. I feel confident in that. But yeah, it just means that the redone ending of Return the Jedi makes even less sense to me now.
It's one of those things where when we were first collaborating on Star Wars things years ago, and you first brought that up, it didn't actually bother me that much. But as the main thing that bothered me was Vader's no. That still pisses me off.
No.
Yeah, of all the changes they've done to all of the original trilogies, most of it I don't mind. I actually like some of it. Controversially, I'm okay with a really weird, cheesy, jarring song, which I know a lot of people hate in Jabba's Palace. I'm fine with that, space campiness, whatever. But the no bit triggers me. And then, yeah, the Endor bit, where especially when you've got Coruscant and Naboo celebrating, and it's like, first of all, how do they know? And second of all, as you say, like you play Star Wars Battlefront 2, you read the Aftermath books, you literally look at any piece of content outside of that tiny element, and all of it is going, not everyone was celebrating. There was rioting in the streets.
Yeah.
There was bits that kind of spread around. There was certain people that were happy, but if you overthrow any government, even an oppressive one, not everyone is going to be happy, as you very eloquently put. And I really liked that scene. I think the scene where they all turn, although, yeah, saying for the Empire is a bit too much. When they all turn and shoot, I was like, oh, and then they just easily they're all just out. And it's like, wow, that was, I really like that. And I like this growing, festering part of the Empire because it's quite funny because in the times of the prequels, the Republic actually is shown to be quite crap. And then the Empire is shown to be overtly fascist and committing mass genocide and things. And then we've got the New Republic, and every interaction we've had from everyone in the New Republic, bar Carson Teva, who is the chap who's in The Mandalorian. He's the fighter pilot who's friends with Cara Dune. And then she's mysteriously disappeared because obviously the actress was saying weird stuff on Twitter and Disney gave her the boot. But like, apart from him, who's lovely, every single other member of the New Republic seemed like such dickheads. All of them are so arrogant and they're like seeping with it. Even that guy that you mentioned at the start who's when Balin and Shin come on board and he's just being a dick about it. Yeah. And it's like, okay, either they are Jedi and you're disrespecting Jedi, or they're not Jedi, so you need to have your guard up. You're just being this middle ground dick for no reason and completely antagonistic. And it's like, I think it's intentional, and I think that the whole Mandoverse is really showing like the New Republic, because they beat the Empire, they just became smug and complacent. And we do get that in the novels a little bit. Bloodline shows it quite well. But I'm almost rooting for the Empire at this point, because I'm just like, if I went to a bureau and like there's the guy, he's the principal in Mean Girls, but he was in, I think it was Mando Series 3, when Carson Teva goes to him and says, look, we need some help here. There's this pirate attacking Navarro, blah, blah, blah. And he's just being a dick about it. And it's like, well, people like you, okay, if I interacted with you, if I'm at the or not DMV, because we have that in the UK, but the DVLA, if I'm trying to do something to do with my car insurance or driver's license, I have to go to an official government building. If someone's talking to me like that, I'd be fuming. I'd be like seething. So like when you hear these people of the Empire being like, yeah, we want to take down the New Republic, I'm like, I'm actually, with the interactions I've seen on the screen, although in principle I disagree because I'm not a fascist, on a personal level, with anecdotes applied, I am kind of rooting against the New Republic.
Yeah. You're like, you bureaucratic bastard from the DVLA, I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Oh, man. Is there... I think I've tackled... I've got everything on my notes. I think I mentioned right at the start of when Sabine's cutting her hair, it's meant to be like a homage to Kanan, it seems. Obviously, to anyone listening now, go watch Rebels if you haven't already, what you're doing. But is there anything else you wanted to mention that we haven't tackled?
No, just super pumped. I have this love-hate relationship with drawn-out series, because we get to have chats like this where, we just discuss it, dissect it, but, just have fun talking about it. But on the other hand, I just want to watch the rest of the season, and just binge the crap out of it. I want to know where this goes. The fact that it anchors right at the end of that epilogue of Rebels kind of means that okay, so we like canon wise, we haven't seen anything new. So we're anchored at that same position where we got to at the end of Rebels. So, okay, where to next? I mean, I guess we know Thrawn's going to come back. We know Ezra is probably going to come back. And again, the fact that we haven't seen in any of the trailers or anything, I still think he could be that assassin. He could be that Inquisitor.
A lot of theories say it could be bad.
Yeah, at least temporarily, and maybe they're able to bring him back. I think that would be, well, that'd be a way. I don't know how I'd feel about that because I do think that, he makes Luke Skywalker look like the Poundland Jedi. I feel like, so at the end in the fourth season of Rebels, you're like, this is the guy who should have been a New Hope. Because he's better than Luke. While Luke's moaning about his power converters at Tosche Station, Ezra was killing it, a few years before. So, yeah, I don't know if they'll go that way, but I'm just excited to kind of get behind it and see where it goes.
It was also exciting because it's not dissimilar to Andor in the sense that although we know in broad strokes what happens, in Andor we know what happens to Andor because he dies in Rogue One, but all the supporting characters, every new character introduced, bar obviously Mon Mothma who already existed, all of those characters, it's like we don't know what's going to happen, so there's actual dramatic tension. And that's one of the things I don't like about legacy characters, is like especially when you have legacy characters in between two crucial points in their life. Like if Luke pops up, we know he's in no danger. Whereas Luke in the sequels are like, he could die, and he does. And so I'm really excited about, the Ghost crew. They could die. I think it's unlikely Hera's going to die until we at least meet Jason Syndulla, obviously her son. And there's rumours going around that he's going to pop up in the Skeleton Crew series. That was the piece of content I was trying to think of. Skeleton Crew with Jude Law in it, and then the rest of the cast I'm not sure about, but it's basically like a captain who's an adult with a group of kids and they get stranded somewhere, I think. That's like, right. And there's rumours that Jason Syndulla is going to be one of the main characters in that, and that's how they're going to kind of show off. And it might be happening at the same time as Ahsoka. It might be happening around the same time as the Mandoverse. That's the strong hint of it. So that piece of content may also is likely to connect in, which I'm quite excited about. But yeah, like I doubt Hera's going to die because of Jason stuff, and then the other characters, like they could. It's an interesting part where, although I doubt Ahsoka's going to die in her own series, she definitely could. The finale could be that Thrawn comes back and she dies to save everyone else, and then in the Thrawn series, Ezra becomes the de facto Luke Skywalker. And then he fights Thrawn. Like, that could very easily happen. I don't want Ahsoka to die, obviously, but I like the fact that we don't know exactly where it's going. There's a big enough time jump. There's still like 20-odd years between where we are, in theory. I always have to say in theory because they might tweak the timelines. But it's still about 20 years. And if you think about wars in this world, like, wars, unless they're Cold War, don't generally go on for 20 years. Like World War II was only 5 years, or 6 years, and World War I was only 4 years. So you just think, like, how much time can actually pass in that? So I'm very excited about that. I'm really excited to see. I think, as I said at the start here, I was a bit underwhelmed by the first two episodes, but I think that's due to the runoff from Rebel Series 4. I think the action's great. I think the dialogue's not perfect. I think there's a few bits that are a bit like, meh. And I'm not sure about Hera yet. And I love Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Like, she's one of my favourite female actors. Obviously, Scott Pilgrim, a lot of people know her from. I love her in 10 Cloverfield Lane. She's in Birds of Prey, which is a film I adore that no one else seems to like very much in the DC roster. But I think she's great in everything. And she's got an album out called Gotta Girl that came out like 15 years ago that I always mention because I want more people to listen to it because I love it. But I don't know how I feel about Hera because I don't know if... She seems quite disconnected and a bit apathetic. And I'm like, is this because of Mary Elizabeth's direction? Is it because we're going to get more we're going to get more development from her to find out why she is the way she is? Because it's been 10 years since the finale of Rebels. She's got a son. She fought in a war for around 5 years as well. is kind of at the end of the war, and she's probably kind of hoping, I wish I could just have a little bit of a break, and things keep coming up. I'm hoping, I have my faith in Filoni, because Filoni, if nothing else, plays the long game. Clone Wars is a testament to that, where you've got some of, in my view, the worst Star Wars that exists, as well as some of the best Star Wars that exists, and some incredible stuff along the way. But Hera, I need more time with her. And that leads on to just the last thing I was going to ask you before I do wrap up, and that is, where's our boy Zeb?
I just literally, in my notes here, my sparse notes, I wrote down Zeb because I didn't want to get through the episode without mentioning him. So, yeah, absolutely, I'm hoping he shows up. And they've already animated him, haven't they? So we saw him in Andor for that brief moment.
Mando.
Oh, sorry, it was Mando, wasn't it?
I thought, because of Andor and Mando Series 3 came out so soon to each other, I keep getting them mixed up in my head too.
But he was in the bar, wasn't he, with the X-Wing pilot? So I'm hoping he shows up. And I was looking back actually at some of the original designs for Chewie, and it's basically Zeb, isn't it? They've just taken him. So yeah, I'm pretty sure he will show up.
Yeah.
I'm with you on Hera though. There's something just slightly off about her character that doesn't feel exactly like the character in Rebels. Like, because she seemed to be the mother of the whole group, didn't she? She seemed to be the adult, in it. And here she does seem a bit more disconnected. I agree. And you've just reminded me, actually, I will pick a nit now. There was a line of dialogue. So when they were looking at the hologram footage of the base being taken over or whatever, that initial fight scene, and she said she was talking to Ahsoka Tano, and she says something like, "They have abilities like you." And I'm like, you were literally shagging a Jedi for a whole bunch of years. You know what a Jedi is. Why would you say that? That is a ridiculous line of dialogue. As if it's like, oh, yeah, I have no idea what this is, but it looks kind of like what you do. I don't know why it really pissed me off in that moment.
I have a suspicion they're not going to utter Kanan's name at all. Or even with, and Ezra might to Sabine, but I would not be surprised if Filoni is trying to keep the what happens to Kanan a secret from live action people, because if they're like, look, go check out Rebels, you get this whole thing. It would. I mean, I think if you finish Ahsoka and then you go back to Rebels, it's going to be quite clear why is one of we saw Zeb elsewhere, so why is one crucial member of the team not here? Well, yeah, it's Star Wars. There's only one of two things that can happen: they disappear into the abyss, or they die, or both. Yeah,
But the guy, the dick who got killed off, the captain dude, like, he knew what a Jedi was. In fact, the whole crew knew what a Jedi was. Yeah. So it does seem like, it is known what a Jedi is, so even though, that random bit of dialogue about it being an ancient religion, is probably, a bit off, but people do recognize that it is this thing. So, yeah, there probably is some reason as to why that line was written the way it was written, but it just, seemed very weird to me.
Yeah. So fingers crossed we get a Zeb appearance at some point. There's, Anakin's going to pop up at some point, I think, as a flashback. I think actually a trailer's been released which has a little bit of that in, and I'm just like, because I saw a mild thing on IMDb, and I'm just like, can I just watch a show, please, and not have every surprise taken out? Like, one thing I will say, I'm really happy about this, and I was saying to Megan when it happened, that 90 to 95% of the trailer we watched was in these first two episodes. That's how you do a trailer. You just put stuff in there that seems substantial, you subvert expectations, and then almost all the footage is gone within the first act or so. Because if I see an action film and a helicopter crashes, Mission Impossible, I'm looking at you, I know there's going to be a helicopter crash at some point. And when for the first 2 hours of a 2.5 hour movie, there's not been a helicopter crash, I then know what the end is, and it drives me mad. So I know the answer to that is don't watch trailers, but it's too juicy.
Well, no, I feel like, part of me felt like, the that we're getting trailers down to a finer art. So if you go back and watch older trailers, from like the 80s, the 90s, a lot of them will just literally spell out the movie for you.
Oh,
and you're
yes.
like, oh, great. I don't need to watch the movie now. But I think Marvel did a pretty good job in the build up to Endgame. You'd watch the trailers and you'd get a whole bunch of action, but you're like, still got no bloody idea what's going to happen. And when you watch the movie, you realize that actually most of what we saw, especially for like Endgame, it was in that first 10, 15 minutes. And you're like, okay, we're off piece now. No idea where this is going to go. But then, what was it? The Dark Phoenix, the X-Men movie.
I never even bothered watching it, so you can spoil away.
Yeah, so just watch the trailer and you'll get all you need from that, because they literally spelt out the whole movie in the trailer. And so I was like, oh, maybe trailers aren't so down to a fine art. Maybe it's still one of those things where there's just different people who do them really well and other people don't, and think you need to give away all the best bits to get bums on seats in the cinema.
Yeah, I think part of it is how much the studios and the producers get involved, because I'm fairly sure that when you direct a film, you don't really get much of a say of how the trailer is, because the trailer is part of marketing. And it's it's kind of that double-edged sword, really, because you have trailers like Fight Club, which don't give anything away. And because it gives so little away, no one went and saw it, so it was a box office bomb and only made its money back at home release. But then you get other ones where, as you say, I think far more often than not, trailers give too much away. If I hear a funny film is coming out, I will not watch any trailers. Barbie's the only one. I saw one trailer of that, and I was like, yep, sold, gonna go see that. And I love that film. It's fantastic. But, like, you watch a comedy trailer, and you've basically just ruined every best joke of the film. And it sucks. And then when a scene happens in a comedy film, you're like, I remember this from the trailer. It's like, well, goodbye punchline. But yes, I've only watched the one main trailer of Ahsoka. I've got some fun things that I think are going to happen. Obviously, we're eventually going to get, in theory, a flashback for Anakin. Zeb's probably going to pop up. And then Thrawn is, in theory, going to pop up because he was in the trailer too. So it's like, well, where are we going to go? Where are we going to get with this? It's 8 episodes, so it's a bit longer than, say, Kenobi. And I forgot your last point, your previous point, which is I'm a proponent for weekly. I prefer weekly shows because I find it so much easier to make time for an hour-ish once a week, rather than being like, I have to watch 8 hours of TV in 4 days or spoilers are going to be everywhere. It's much easier to just kind of hide all notifications from social media the day of the episode coming out and then go to watch it. I think Ahsoka is going to be the kind of show a bit like Obi-Wan, where I think Obi-Wan was hurt by it being weekly. And I think if they'd have released it the first 3 parts in one go and the second 3 parts in one go, it'd have been amazing. But I think because they split it so much, we were, myself included, hyper-focusing on certain episodes that weren't as good because they were build-up for the next episode. And that is the issue with serialized content, unfortunately, when you've got it week by week, is that some weeks are going to be better than others. And so I'd almost prefer it to be released in arcs, or just like, we're going to have Ahsoka for 4 weeks. Every week is 2 episodes. Kind of, The Boys did something not dissimilar to that. And I quite like that method. Or maybe what they did with Witcher on Netflix. Here's half the series. You get a month. Here's the other half. But I do love these weekly discussion shows. It feels like we're all on the ride together. Yeah. So, yeah, really, really fun. Well, thank you for chatting with me, Dave. It's always a delight chatting Star Wars with you. Probably going to have a break from you and talking Star Wars for Ahsoka for a while. Right. And then, later on in the year, we'll start up I have to think of a snappy name for the Clone Wars rewatch. Or watching Clone Wars, I suppose, is quite an easy one.
And we can't call it the Clone Wars,
because we can't. Upset Spider Dan. So we'll figure that out, and we'll have more content once Ahsoka's all done. We'll kind of delve into that. But I think Ahsoka finishes in early October, so we'll be doing this for a little while, myself and a variety of guests. But Dave, where can people find you? Tell them about all your amazing podcasts and what you've been up to.
So, I mean, there's bit more discipline these days. So the main one is the VHS Strikes Back, where we go back and look at all these great old movies. I say great, some of them are not so great, from the kind of home video golden era, the 80s and 90s. But actually this year we've gone back and done quite a few of the 70s. In fact, just recorded one called Oh God, which was released in 1977 and knocked Star Wars off the top spot for a whole week.
What?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the box office, it was paled in comparison. But yeah, that was an interesting one. I think the box office was like 51 million. Star Wars was something like nearly 800 million or something like that. So it was a blip, if anything. But yeah, so it comes out every Wednesday, Monday for Patrons. We're having a little bit of a break from Chris and Dave's reality TV cast at the minute. So Love Island has finished. We're going to have Married at First Sight UK is going to be starting some point in September, I think. So we're just going to take a few weeks off from that one.
Have a nice old breather. And I always recommend anyone who listens to any of my Star Wars shows and likes Star Wars, you'll like the VHS Strikes Back. Really fun show. I don't listen to every single episode because occasionally they do classics, which I'm like, oh yeah, I still haven't seen that movie. What's wrong with me? But most of the time, it's other films I've seen. You know, there's Office Space was a brilliant one. I really enjoyed that. And Office Space, I've got it on DVD. I've loved that film for ages. And then there's other films where I like. Normally your patrons make you watch them, like, was it Bad Boy Bubby and
oh my god,
things like that.
Horrendous ones.
And it's like it's kind of the Spider Dan trick. It's like I've never even heard of this film. I'm never ever going to watch it. So I'm going to let you guys suffer through it and watch this crazy mental thing. And if you say nice things, maybe I will. But I'd always recommend, people check out VHS Strikes Back. It's so much fun. It's you can see why you two have been such a pod duo who's so formidable for so many years now. It's a joy to listen to.
You know, I think it might have been Hera who said something in this. Was it episode 2? She said something about missing something. And you mentioned about Office Space. And I was waiting for someone to go, well, I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Barb.
That film is just so quotable. Every 5 minutes, there's 2 or 3 quotes in it. It's a good one. Well, friends, you can find me. You can, if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe and check out my variety of playlists. I've got loads of Star Wars conversations. I've spoken to creators of Star Wars content, as in not fanfics, real content creators. Kevin Shinnick, who wrote The Force Collector and worked with George Lucas. I've spoken to Cavan Scott, George Mann, Claudia Gray, all High Republic creators. I've spoken to a variety of people. So check out my Star Wars Conversations playlist. Check out my show Star Wars Comics in Canon. It's basically the perfect guide for yourselves to check out Star Wars comics without ever having to read a Star Wars comic. So I go through the plot details of the batch of comics I'm doing, normally a volume or a trade paperback or a mini-series, and then along the way, as I'm giving you the plot details, I then give you additional information on trivia and canon little tidbits and things, like I have done in this conversation. Oh, there's a character that popped up in this thing, or here's a item that's been seen somewhere else, or here's a bit of information about a planet or a species. So you don't have to have read a single Star Wars comic in your entire life, and if you have read the comic in question, chances are I'll give you some bonus additional information that you won't already have heard of. I've tackled every single Marvel canon Star Wars comic up to within 6 months of this recording, because I can't do every single month constantly. I've done loads of them, done pretty much every piece of the High Republic content that's out thus far, bar 3 pieces. In the next month, that'll be done. So, please check that out if you haven't already. My Star Wars show, you can start from episode 1 or wherever you want, really. They're in episodic. They're numbered, but you don't have to start from episode 1. And then check out Genuine Chit-Chat. Have lots of fun Star Wars conversations. Recently spoke to Neda Mukhtari, who's done Fennec Shand cosplay. She's studying architecture at university. Really lots of fun conversations about Star Wars and non-Star Wars stuff. But you can follow me on social media at Genuine Chit-Chat, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and I occasionally post videos on TikTok. And subscribe to YouTube, like, share with your friends, and check out all the details in the show notes for mine and Dave's stuff that's going on, including we did Tales of the Jedi, which I only remembered because I copied show notes from a previous one because I've already got the show notes ready.
Right.
We did Tales of the Jedi last year, didn't we? Which has got Ahsoka in it. So
yeah,
content coming at your ears. But friends, thank you for listening as always. Subscribe to the feed of Comics in Motion, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and tune in next week for the next 7 weeks or next 6 weeks for the Ahsoka discussion shows. Dave, thank you so much for joining me once again. I always appreciate your time and your counsel, your Jedi counsel, and friends of who are listening. May the Force be with you.
And with you.
I love it every time you say that.
Yeah.
It warms my heart.